snowballs.
Yeah. Snowballs? Where's the Twinkies?
You realize what you've done to my wife?
I am not looking for trouble. I am but a humble gato in search of his next meal. Perhaps you gentlemen can help me find a simple score.
Go on, boys, chop its head off. Right, silly little bleeder. One rabbit stew coming right up. Jesus Christ!
That could be bad.
We like to bring the historical and religious utterances of a certain name to the program
Yes.
once in a while. Speaking of which, hi, I'm Mark.
And I'm Tom.
And we are the
Cinemaniacs. I think Mark and Tom, at least one of us, was an apostle. So, well, I think Mark was an apostle. See, here's a raised Catholic. I don't remember it. Sorry.
I can give you the.
I know he wrote a letter to the Corinthians.
I wrote an angry letter to the Times once.
I don't know.
Fine Corinthians. They had some fine leather.
Did they?
Those Corinthians. So this weekend in the theater,
Yes.
I saw 11 movies in the theater.
only one of which was a newly released.
Only one of which we're going to talk about
Right.
today. Have you seen any films since we last
I
convened?
have, as a matter of fact, both in theaters, and I'd like to thank Darren and everybody over at the Latches Theaters in Brattleboro. Saw a couple of movies there. And then, as you know, we tend to have some things on home video, however you get them. Don't know necessarily how.
I mostly get them in the mail
Oh, well, that's nice to know.
for free.
Yes.
So we can talk about them.
Okay, well, I'll talk about mine then.
Please.
At least one that I saw, because not quite sure if you did. But we're going to talk about Gene. Gene is a little round guy, round-faced guy. He's really, he's got lots of expressions and everything like that, and he works really well with you, but he wants to kind of maybe take life a little bit easier, maybe kind of go down the slow road, because face it, society is too fast-paced. And you can check out all of his efforts in the documentary, not quite sure if we'd call it that, of the EMOJI movie.
The crispy, crunchy chip with a zesty, tantalizing flavor all its own.
Yeah, okay. That's maybe kind of an example. We saw the elephant butt jokes and things like that. I would
never know this film was animated or intended for kids unless there was something to do with the rectum.
Right,
Otherwise, I would have thought it was only for the elderly.
I was so dreading seeing this, and everybody I talked to, I do a radio show, as you know, and Dan Mitchell and I were talking, and I think Dan came up and said, okay, so they're about emojis, but it clearly looks like this is aimed at like 4- and 5-year-olds. How many 4- and 5-year-olds use cell phones and send emails with emojis on them? I don't know. I can't think a whole lot. So I went into this this was my paying my dues for doing this show. And I was surprised. I thought it was sort of fun. It's sure beautiful. Very, very pretty. Colors all over the place. But there were some clever little bits. You actually saw one there where one of the emojis is sitting there practicing his face. And, it's about, oh my God, when I get called, will I be able to do the... I was surprised at the level of, at one point, the level of comedy that they were able to draw out of our use of emojis and things like that. So I was, ultimately I went in expecting this to be just an unbelievable, ungodly waste of time, and it wasn't. So that's not, that's not going to go on the back cover of the
Not
Blu-ray.
an ungodly waste of time, says Tom Cook of the
But
Cinemaniacs.
I do think, do you want to see this in the theater? If you're a huge emoji fan, or if you really are, again, the thing I was bowled over with was how pretty it was. But I think this might be actually kind of fun if you can find this as a rental when it comes back out. So I'll be surprised, I'll be interested at my own review of it when this comes back out on video, because in expecting to pay my dues, and as you and I were talking when the trailer was on, it's pleasant to go into something and be pleasantly surprised. So I was pleasantly surprised by the EMOJI movie.
Especially when you're not paying to see it.
Well, yeah.
This will be one for people to watch on their phones when it comes out.
Exactly.
I did not see this for no other reason than I chose not to do so.
Fair
no,
enough.
I didn't have time. I was watching 11 other films in the theater.
At the same time, really, in the time I watched the EMOJI movie, you were able to watch 11 other movies, and that's pretty good.
Keyword, Blipverts.
Ah, there you go.
So, up next, we have a film starring everyone's favorite woman who was in the film Monster, who wasn't Christina Ricci. Charlize Theron is in an axe-kicking action film set in the late 80s during the height and/or end of the Cold War, in which she portrays an agent working for a side yet to be determined in finding a magical list of names that will cause pain for those and suffering for others. And she is the embodiment of the Atomic Blonde.
And now, on with the show.
Hi.
Hi.
So about once a year, anybody who watches this show knows how I feel about action movies. I love action movies. I hate 99% of action movies because nobody knows how to shoot and cut them anymore.
Right.
It's I always say the equivalent, the way they shoot action movies so you can't see anything that's going on is like renting an adult film and all of the sex is completely out of focus. There is now no point to this film. So once a year I get an action movie that makes me happy, and this might be that movie for me this year. This is one of the creative team from the John Wick films is behind this, and when I heard that,
we both loved.
I love the John Wick films. They're exciting. They are frenetic. They are watchable action. They are visible action in every scene. So set in 1989 in Berlin, East-West Berlin, as the wall is coming down. And as I said earlier,
Not that I necessarily thought that was super important.
well, the more I thought about it, I'm like, this didn't need that. This could have been said at any point, now or then.
And that's okay.
It's a typical spy movie plot device. I have to get the thing. Who has the thing? People want to kill for the thing. Doesn't matter what it is. So, tiny quibbles, okay? 1989. All the music from this movie is from like 81, 82.
Right.
Now, that might, for people 20, 30 years hence, what difference does that make?
Right, it's
Well, let me
80s,
tell you,
come on.
in 89, people weren't listening to Der Kommissar on the radio. In 89, people weren't listening to, early new wave and that stuff. If they liked it, maybe they were still listening to it, but they weren't playing it on the radio anymore. Even in Berlin. Kids weren't breakdancing to 99 Luft Balloons in late 89, I'm going to tell you. I wasn't in Germany, but I was elsewhere. But the music really fits the tone of the movie really well. It's that cold techno German kind of vibe. The film is very much toned down color for the most part, which I'm not always a fan of, but it's half the time when the people tone the color down this much, I'm like, just shoot it in black and white and get it over with. But there are sequences where there's some blazing neon here and there, and it's very much a, hand down your pants to the 80s, which I'm getting a little tired of personally. But anyway, it removes the whole, I can't get a signal. I can't get a signal, which I hate in movies too. Theron is great, I thought.
Yes.
The action is really well done. There is one big showpiece toward the end that purports visually to be an uninterrupted take. I think there are some sneaky edits and some CGI trickery going on there. I didn't like that fight scene because the camera was too close. And really, for me, generally, you need a change of point of view to really capture the action, and this doesn't do that. So there's a sequence that you see in the trailer briefly where she's in a car chase and she drives the car backwards down a street where there's other traffic, and we're looking like out the back window, and that's like, that doesn't sell it. You need to be at a high angle or a wide angle and really see the chaos that's going on. I will say all of the stunt work and action and car stunts look to be practical, which is fantastic. Just a lot of times there'll be a fight scene played out in a wide shot, and you're just impressed by what's going on and by the ability to see what's going on. Pretty good supporting cast. You have John Goodman as an American CIA agent. You have Toby Jones as a British agent. You have
James McAvoy.
James McAvoy. Oh yeah, that guy who's in everything. Just a pretty strong cast overall, and good, authentic-looking faces in this film. So I really liked it quite a bit. My only quibbles, other tiny quibble, probably wouldn't get a full audience at a matinee of a 17-year-old foreign film. There's a sequence that the film is playing in the theater, and I'm like, yeah, that probably wouldn't happen then or now. But if I'm going to pick on music selection and the amount of people going to see Stalker in 1989, the film is pretty darn good. So I liked it a lot. Not great. It felt a little bit too long. Like it could have probably lost 15 or 20 minutes maybe to me. But I would be thrilled to see more films with this character set in the past or future from when this film is set. And I also want to say this, and I'm going to look into the camera and say this. Everybody who says we need a female James Bond, we need a black James Bond, we need a Latino James Bond. No, we don't. We need a female action hero, we need a black action hero, we need a Latino. We need every color of the rainbow and every gender action hero, and that's what Atomic Blonde gives you. We don't need a female James Bond, we need this character, and we got one, and it's great. So go see it and pay money to see it, and we'll get James Bond and we'll get the Atomic Blonde. You see, if you keep doing this, we'll have like 50 great action series rather than just one that everybody wants to change every time an actor gets tired of the role. Anyway, I like James Bond. Hi.
Well, off of your soapbox, at least at this point. I agree with the vast majority of what you had to say. With one exception, most of my complaints, excuse me, are little nitpicky things. And I'll agree with a few of the action sequences being shot too tight. I think most people won't be distracted by, excuse me, by my coughing, by this purported super long take. I don't think most people, and this isn't saying that we're brilliant or anything like that,
far
but
from
these are the things that we look at, or for which we look. It does get distracting. And so for people who are overly focused on it, no pun intended, cinematographically, these long takes do tend to get distracting to me. I'll go see a movie for McAvoy anyway, and Theron, unquestionably. They're both super strong. I really like them. Minor complaint would be there's a lot of whose side is he on, whose side is she on, double agent, triple agent, quadruple agent, that kind of thing.
I like that it was old-style espionage, actually.
Yeah, and that was fun. It felt often very Clancy-esque, or even, those types of... and maybe that's why they threw it back into the 80s. So I thought that was enjoyable. My real complaint, and I ended up liking this a lot, probably going to buy this. I hope to God it comes out on 4K. Nothing ever does because it looks so nice. But my real complaint is, you set it up. She's an MI6 agent who's out to get the MacGuffin. But the movie starts with a couple of super high level, one of them being James Goodman, spy supervisors.
It's a debriefing.
Right, exactly. Good call. It's a debriefing with her character. And the whole film is set around that. And we keep flashing back to what she does. And then we come to present day when they're in there. And they'll sit there and talk for like 15 minutes. So I was surprised that I was bored through a lot of this. When we're back just sitting there talking, I just found a lot of it really boring. And for me, boy, that's just some of the stuff you could have trimmed. I did think it was too long. It was right at 2 hours long, I believe, when I went in and when I came out. But overall, ended up really liking Atomic Blonde. Maybe went in expecting a little bit too much of it, and so maybe I found the interview sequences and the debriefing sequences a little more boring. They're needed to kind of get the plot continuing. But yeah, I'd sure love to see this character again, and anybody who who does like the Wicks. I don't put them up there with John Wick, but just maybe slightly below that. Theron and McAvoy are both terrific, I think.
Well, I'm sorry you found those debriefing scenes so inconvenient.
Oh, zap, that being the case. He's alluding to something else. It's a continuation of a film that we've seen a couple of decades ago. Look, they tried to warn us. They tried to say that all hell was breaking loose and the Chicken Littles are falling out of the sky. Turns out it's true, whether you believe all the rumors to the alternative or not. The same guys are back, led by Trump possibly, but Al Gore is back, and you're going to see a lot of the same faces because they come back for an inconvenient sequel.
It's refreshment time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building.
So, a little political discussion going on there, I suppose, whatever side you're on. I didn't get a chance to see this. I definitely want to. I personally happen to, I believe, agree with everything that this says. And you mentioned, and I'll steal your thunder briefly, but your comment was, even if you wholeheartedly disagree with the concept of climate change or that pollution is bad, doesn't it make the world a better place to not pollute, to use fewer carbons? So anyway, so that one's out. The filmmaker, apparently there was a brief documentary on like 4 or 5 minutes long on the making of this, where they interviewed the Gore, Barack Obama, and the director of this, and the director was and Gore apparently felt motivated just that the situation is becoming so critical, particularly with some of the current administration's desires for changes, that they felt that this had to come out. But in many respects, this is like a lot of the and not getting down on, because we've seen some really fine religious-based films coming out recently. But to use the term, it's kind of like preaching to the choir. I don't think people who disagree with climate change, one, are going to go see this, and two, even if they will, I don't think you're going to change their minds. So I kind of wonder for whom these movies are made. It's a lot like the God is Dead kinds of things. Again, and we've seen not the God is Dead ones, although I like the second one. Okay, we've seen a lot of these religious films come out that are really, really well made and actually thought provoking. So I hope some people will open up a little bit and go see some of these things. Science. Who knows what?
What do people who devote all their lives to studying something know about anything? There's my comment of the week. So up next, speaking of films that I didn't see, here's a animated film that was in theaters not that long ago. What happens when a strange force under 3 feet tall comes into your house and wreaks havoc with an intellect and verbosity better than mine? Well, you better buckle up, camper, because it's time to listen to the Boss Baby.
Some people say I done all right for a girl.
So, okay.
The Barf Baby?
The Barf Baby, exactly right. Well, that's what they do.
That's what I thought I heard.
You got to get bodily fluids and things into these.
Yeah.
Which you get it, okay. At whom is this aimed? Aimed primarily, I think, at not even teenagers, but preteens, I would think, and really little kids. Really little kids, there's stuff there. I was not, I did see this on video again, just because I was able to, because it didn't cost me anything. I won't say necessarily how. Not that it's not illegal. But again, pretty colors and things like that. I was less bothered on video than I was in theaters by their pretty forcibly shoving adult comments in there. People who have, young people who have new babies will find this really funny, so here's a joke. I didn't find that quite as offensive, but this is just, this is fluff. If you're a really, really young kid, there's nothing terribly offensive. You get the butt jokes and you get the baby poo jokes and stuff like that, as we saw. But what are you going to expect? So Boss Baby was not super high on my list. I wasn't crazy about it.
So we are talking about home video now.
Yes.
It was pointed out to me that I just sort of leapt right into video and we didn't give it any consideration. Speaking of consideration.
Yes, we should give consideration to Scarlett Johansson. We should always give consideration to Scarlett Johansson, don't you think? I think she deserves it. But if she's going to get painted on into a little suit and things like that, you have to find out in the future what might happen with a very famous manga line with Scarlett coming in. She plays a woman who is in a pretty serious crash. Maybe Weller should join her in this one. It's not RoboCop, but she gets a painted-on suit and she gets lots of body armor and everything like that. And she's sort of a half cyborg, half human person. You don't know really what motivates her, except for the ghost in the shell.
A ghost! Only a Fruity Pebbles can set my spirit free.
Who can? Let's face it.
Not naked, just in case that's
this
what it
one,
looked like.
again, this one based on a very popular manga that we've seen animated beforehand.
Yep,
Ghost in the Shell, several iterations of this. So this is the live-action version. I was struck by it feeling forcibly marketed to both sides of the Pacific, in my opinion.
There's a lot of that now.
Although the performers were fine. All the performances were good. There's just not a whole lot there. We've seen it all over again. Her struggling with, is she human? Is she a robot? You know that there's a duplicitous force behind all of the machinations that are going on, and she has to figure it out. The action was okay, but nothing super spectacular. I like her as an actress. She's, again, when off air, I thought she was terrific in Hail Caesar. This very funny, amusing character. But I don't think she's really strong enough to helm an entire film. Is she okay as Black Widow? Yeah, I can deal with that. She was good in Hail Caesar, but I wasn't crazy about Ghost in the Shell. I'm not familiar with the mangas, so I just saw so many similarities between other films that we'd seen before, that, and also the fact that I didn't think the CG or the effects were all that great in it. So I wasn't crazy about Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah, plot-wise, it's very similar to a lot of things we've seen before.
Yeah.
Not just because it's based on a property people may have seen already. I find Scarlett Johansson, Take your pick. To be pretty bland as an actress,
Right.
so I don't really get what the big deal about her is for the most part. So that blandness sort of works in being a mostly emotionless cyborg or robot in this film, but it didn't really connect with me. I mean, it has some cool visuals and some cool effects here and there, but otherwise, honestly, I saw this in the theater. I really don't remember much about it, other than not being very impressed with it.
That's another one that goes on the box. Right?
Yeah.
I don't really remember a lot about it.
I don't recall in my name. The most interesting thing to me at the time is that the Japanese actor Takeshi Kitano is in this film, and I've never seen him in anything resembling an American type film before. He was in Battle Royale and Fireworks, and he was in his own series of Sun and Teen, all kinds of gangster movies over there. And I guess he was a comedian and hosted Takeshi's Castle, so people may know him from that.
He was a comedian, really?
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. If you see his later films, it makes no sense. But to me, that was cool to see him in an American film.
And he's very good.
On an American scene. But otherwise, I was not a big fan of this. I guess if you're a Johansson fan, or maybe if you're a fan of the anime, it might be worth taking a look at just out of curiosity. But I don't think we're going to see Ghost in the Shell 2
I doubt
live
that.
action with her in it, at least. Up next, if I may.
It's your turn.
Oh, I'm going to swing for the fences on a film I have no idea what this is about. So, Criff, his less talented brother, Chris Evans is back on the big screen in an emotional family drama about a man with a child and some custody issues, and what happens when you are custodially issuing with a child who is, or may be, gifted.
And Iraq, that wasn't life, although it's kind of about life, I suppose, as the case may be. But this one came, I don't recall this being in theaters.
I think it was very briefly.
Okay, and so again, it's one of those that, gee, some not huge stars. I guess you'd call Chris Evans a star. I mean, not the original Human Torch, but the Human Torch, but Captain America, and in a much smaller film. This one caught me completely by surprise, and I thought the performances were really solid. It's a very not tug at your strings, a heartwarming film, but it, so by that I mean it didn't go over the top. I thought it was very effective. I thought the little girl was fine. Evans is good. Surprising to see as I get older. I guess I don't expect my movie stars to get any older. And gee, now all of a sudden he plays a parent. This is kind of scary. But yeah, this was a surprise, little kind of what I'd call a gem that came out on video, and I don't recall it in theaters. But if there's anything that appeals to you, if you like little kind of strong, heartfelt family films, I thought Gifted was really quite good, and you'll probably see it. You may see it on my top 10 at the end of the year.
Speaking of a strong and heartfelt family.
A heartfelt family, yes. They're strong, and they have a lot to do with hearts eventually in some way, shape, or form. But here's a nice, calm, quiet tale about a doctor who goes out seeking some information on some unusual events that have occurred in the West. And you really don't want to meet this one particular family. This is a documentary kind of based on, certainly based on real events, about America's first family of serial killers. If you run into them, you're going to be on quite a long bender.
I need to strut. Come on, baby. Do that, do. Did that, do, boom, come on.
Whoop. Sorry.
Oh, no, he's just doing his homework.
Casual reading. I'm doing research
for
later in the show. Yes.
Apparently based on a true story. I did not take the time or have the time to look into see the truth of the tale. But basically the premise is this very small family, a woman, husband, late teens, early 20s daughter, and a young boy live in this cabin that's like a grocery store out on the plains, sort of in the 1800s. And it's like a roach motel. People check in, they don't check out. Oh, they check out all right. They check out permanently. So it has, I didn't really like it. I'll keep it relatively brief. You have some recognizable faces. You have Linda Pearl, who people may remember as Fonzie's girlfriend and later wife on Happy Days, toward the end. In the era of Happy Days where it's like, it's pretty much the 80s. We'll say it's 1963, but everybody's got feathered hair, and in the bar looks like a honky-tonk from Urban Cowboy. James Karen, who people may know from many, many things. I saw him in a fine little film entitled The Monster of Piedras Blancas this weekend. And he's also in Return of the Living Dead, and he's a friend of Buster Keaton. He's been in movies forever. And Bruce Davison is very, very briefly in this. But for me, unfortunately, this film failed on two counts. The acting, for the most part, is a cast that you don't recognize, and the acting is very like community theater level. Like in a play this would work, but on film it just seems really stiff and phony. And it's really dull. It's only like 75 minutes, and it just, most of the scenes drag, and there's not a lot of suspense. There's a little bit of brutality here and there, but it seems to take forever to do what it does.
That's not real, not to beat it over the head, because I didn't get a chance to see it.
That's what happens in the movie.
If it's as short as you said that it was, like around 70, 75 minutes, and it drags, that's kind of scary.
That's rough.
Yeah.
So it's got some nice photography here and there, a nice sense of being, it's a great concept. It's the middle of nowhere, and if people disappear, it's like, they stopped in and they kept going.
Right.
So I didn't really care for it, but it is available now on DVD and streaming devices.
Okay.
Speaking of available now on devices, is the next film, is it my turn?
I think
it's
it's
my
your
turn.
turn, but
okay, hey, why not be me?
Shuffle off.
Let it be me. The wrong guy. It's the wrong guy. You
Hi,
have got
let it be him.
They had the wrong guy.
Please.
Just like a lot of Hitchcock movies.
I turn it over.
It was the wrong guy.
to
Just
you.
like a movie starring all
There we
comedians, the
go.
wrong guys, which I actually like, but we're not talking about the wrong guys right now. We're talking about a film in which a young girl in the 80s on a farm discovers a man living under the silo on her farm. Is he real? Is he her imagination? Or is it just an American fable?
Hungry fox says, won't you sing for me how beautiful you are?
So here is a surprise of one that you sent.
Yeah.
The one of the pile that you give to me on weekends.
We get press releases saying this movie is out. If you'd like a review copy, let us know. And I look at the trailers, and if I think it's going to be good, I say yes. Sometimes that doesn't work out so well for us, but sometimes it does. This is a case where it did. I had no expectations going into this. I had forgotten whatever the film was about by the time it arrived at our door, so it was totally blank slate for me. And it's just got a great atmosphere.
Yeah.
It's a family farm in the late 80s or mid to late 80s, and things aren't going well, as they, I think, probably are not much better now for family farmers. And this girl's dad, young guy, young family, he does what he needs to make money and keep the farm going, and what he does is very strange. And this little girl has sort of a fantasy world in her own little, isolated from the rest of the outside world on this farm. And you wonder, is what she's seeing and experiencing, is this real? Is she making it up? Is this an allegory for something else that's going on? And you never quite know until toward the end, or at least I didn't until toward the end, that, okay, this is the deal with this movie. But it's really well made. It's not necessarily actors you'd recognize, but they're all quite good. That's really nicely shot. It just has a great sense of time and place, and just this kind of the beauty, which is sort of David Lynch did in Blue Velvet. The beauty of the rural America, which can also be really dark and creepy if you do it right. I don't know if I would call this a horror movie. I know the trailer sells it as a horror movie. I'd call it more of like a dark drama.
Right.
But I really enjoyed it, and this is, like I say, this is one that I'm going to keep because I want to see this
Yeah,
again.
the trailer certainly sells it as a horror film. I found it to be more suspenseful. I agree that I thought performances overall were very solid. The little girl is good. It's nicely shot. If I'm going to criticize it, because overall I liked it quite a bit, if I'm going to criticize it, I got a little tired toward the end of the kind of, is it this? Is it that? Is she really seeing this? Is she not? What's really going on? That started annoying me a little bit, but not horribly so. I thought it wrapped up pretty well. And I was really quite surprised. I wasn't, not necessarily not looking forward to American Fable, but this was one of those that kind of felt like, here's my paying my dues again. And fortunately, this one ended up being quite worthwhile. I thought so.
And luckily, there were no meteorological problems.
Well, that's true.
On the first workday.
That's true. And things can be bad if you're trying to make ends meet. When you're a young woman, she was certainly young at the time, over in England, picking up, buying a club and trying to get things going over there. It's tough when the Americans and the English kind of clash. When you get that going, you can probably anticipate a stormy Monday. Oh, he said it even.
So this is the Arrow Video Corner we neglected to mention.
Yes, that's quite true.
This is, I believe, an Arrow Academy release.
Yes. So again, the thing you can expect is a wonderful transfer. Looked better than I recall seeing it in theaters. Melanie Griffith feels like she's 12. Sort of. She's really, really young. I haven't seen her in a lot recently. Man, it's probably been, I can't quite remember, but I didn't do a lot of research. I remember seeing this in the theaters when it first came out. And at the time, and maybe it was an age thing, because God, when I first came out, it was 20 years ago, and I thought it dragged a little bit. This time I thought it bled together really quite well. You see a lot of, for now, we'll call names. You picked them out. Sting, Sean Bean is
Tommy
in
Lee
this.
Jones.
Yeah, so all of a sudden, holy cow,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people in this. It's certainly her venue. This was just, I don't remember if she was quite the star that she would be.
This is like around the time of Something Wild,
I think it was
maybe?
pretty early, yeah. So she's very strong. Supporting actors are strong. It's an interesting kind of a suspenseful little story that has a lot of English feel to it, English atmosphere. So I was, again, even more pleasantly surprised at how much I liked Stormy Monday.
I did not have a chance to watch this.
Sorry.
But since the pigeons and review discs come back to Capistrano, I'll be watching it on my own later.
Excellent. I think you'll enjoy it.
Next up is another older title, but the actor that some of you will recognize. He's set and shot in the early '60s. A man's lover turns up dead, and he is one of the suspects, known to and by possibly as the assassin.
The first reports say that President Kennedy has been seriously wounded by this shooting.
Hi.
And we're back.
Yep. So this is like a proto-giallo in a way. It's a mystery. This guy is accused by the police of murder. We, the audience, don't know if he did or not. By the end of the movie, you know who did it. Marcello Mastroianni, icon of Italian cinema, is the star of this film. And he's great. And it's just, I love films shot in Italy in the 60s, and this has all the reasons why. Nice, crisp, black and white photography. Again, it's Arrow, so there's a gorgeous transfer of the film.
Right, yeah, it looked really
And
really
there are
fine.
some decent extras on the making of the film and interviews people who were involved with it. And basically, what I love about films like this shot in Rome at the time are it's all shot outdoors, so this is what it looked like there. It's all shot in practical locations. I'm not sure a lot of it was shot on stages. So it really had a cool vibe if you like that time and place like I do. It's not like a breathless thriller. It kind of takes its time, but the running time is not offensive in any way. So I think if you like Mastroianni and Italian thrillers, and if you like giallo films and you want to see sort of a gentle giallo, one that's not like black glove killers and gore, this is kind of a fun movie to check out. So I quite liked The Assassin, actually. And speaking of assassinations of a different sort.
And violence and anything that might be catching you, brought to us once again by Arrow, and we have to thank them for all of this. You're looking for a revenge kind of motivation or a story? There it is. Got me once again. Arrow just has it out for me.
Right in the haunches.
Why. You better watch out for this one. There can be lots of guns and totem violence and things like that when there is some terror in a Texas town.
Texas cities. Explore them and other sites at traveltex.com.
I love the black and white image. So all of a sudden, you get 2 extra points just for that.
And it looks so good.
Yeah, it's a great transfer.
This is so dumb. It's Arrow, so we're like saying how good it looks. Of course it's going to look great. But there's something about razor sharp black and white.
I agree.
In the studio era, when it was all craftsmen who'd been doing this is all they did, that they did it great. And I think personally, we're just saying off air, I think older studio films fare better on Blu-ray and in HD than a lot of newer stuff. Because in the old days, it wasn't like, we want it all to be in focus, we want it all to be well lit, we want the color to pop, we want the black and white to have deep dark shadows.
Right.
I like dark shadows. So this is a B Western. This is a not ridiculously important.
Is this High Noon or something?
No,
but
I mean it's vaguely an echo of High Noon.
Yeah, reminiscent. But
And basically the deal is that bad city boss guy kills a farmer and his hired gun. I just saw Once Upon a Time in the West yesterday, and this is like very similar now that I think about it in overall broad strokes. And relative of the murdered farmer comes to town, played by Sterling Hayden from people mostly probably remember him from Dr. Strangelove as General Jack D. Ripper and his soliloquies on the precious bodily fluids. He is this lean, lanky, lethargic Swede who comes to town, and at the end of the movie you see a little in the trailer. I'm not going to give it away how it goes. You will not believe how this movie ends. I had to rewind it. I'm like, wait a minute, did he really? Is that what happened?
Right.
Just 2 weapons that you probably have never faced off on the screen before with an unlikely winner. Sterling Hayden is the guy who's sort of trying to put up with, the badness of the bad guy and eventually take revenge when he can't walk away no more.
Right.
A lot like High Noon. Again, cool extras that sort of give you some background on who made the film and why. And the film looks amazing. And it's a tight 80 minutes or so. It's not too much of your time. It's just funny when you see a B movie looking as good as this. When I see some multi-$100 million A movies that don't look nearly as good. So I really enjoy. I'm not a major fan of Westerns, but I really enjoyed Terror in a Texas Town.
I love Westerns, and I thought this had many of the qualities of some of the best ones. But yeah, it looks so great, and it's just fun to see that. I think in many respects, as we're sitting here talking about why older films look so much better when they're restored, particularly given this kind of the Arrow treatment. I just tend to think probably whenever we're seeing them, we're seeing old beat up 16 millimeter prints or stuff that got transferred to VHS, and so the quality of these in particular, I think it's just really worth that. This was another highlight this past week of just sitting down and being able to watch, as you say, a well-made film. Maybe it's not the greatest in the world, but everybody seemed to be pretty much at the top of their craft on it. So I really did enjoy Terror in a Texas Town.
Not the least.
And it's so much fun to say too,
isn't it? Not the least of which for its use of harpoon violence. No whales were harmed in making of this film. Hey, I'm not saying who got the harpoon.
Right.
So that's all we have to discuss this week. Next week we have The Dark Tower.
Hey, hooray!
Which is
it's good.
So it's based on a series of books, a long
like
series
9 or
of
something like
thick
that, right,
books,
right.
and the movie is like 95 minutes. So I can't wait to hear what fans of this movie have to say about The Dark Tower. I've never read any, so to me it's like it's an action movie with
I think you could
Idris Elba
take,
in it.
I'm a big fan of the Dark Tower series, and I think you could take them all and compress them down nicely into 3 films. But my understanding is that, yeah, it is just one. It looks to me like, for those of you who are up in the Dark Tower, it looks to me like it's the first and second one.
Okay.
Probably. But we'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm very much looking forward to talking to you about it next week, because you'll be able to tell me about all the stuff that I have no comprehension of.
Okay,
I'm just going to see it as a movie, but you've got the background. So that's.
But again, films shouldn't do that. They should stand on their own. But anyway.
You're going to get both sides of the coin on The Dark Tower next week. Until then, I'm Mark.
And I'm Tom.
And we are
the Cinemaniacs.